It's a pleasure for me today, an honor to be here this morning to speak about a great man, a man whose leadership was acknowledged the nation over, and who came to Punjab at a very difficult time. And to be present when an expert, an acknowledged expert in the RAND Corporation, Dr. Peter Chalk, is going to speak to us about what we are concerned today, extremism, terrorism, and radicalization through the social media, etc., which is of concern to us as it is to the whole country. While all of you have heard of Mr. KPS Gill's contribution, I'm going to leave the floor to Dr. Chalk to speak on the subject which he has posted today, and I want to just concentrate a little bit on a leadership, a man who gave this police the leadership required at a very difficult time. You all know what he did here. You've heard from your seniors, and particularly all of you who joined after that period. But you must remember one thing, which I want you to remember, because you're young men at the back who will one day head this force, that leadership starts at your level. And I'll tell you a story that in 1962, in the Eastern Theatre, in the Tawang area, Bomdilas, etc., we had one brigade which collapsed at Tawang, we had the second brigade which collapsed at Sela, we had the third brigade which collapsed at Bomdila, and the Chinese were poised to move into Tezpur. At that time, there was panic in Tezpur. The civil administration abandoned the field. People were running helter-skelter to get out of the way of what they thought the Chinese would come down into Tezpur. Just one man and his force stood, and that was KPS Gill as a young SP. He didn't leave his position, he held his men together and he waited. What the outcome would have been, God alone knows. Because the Chinese called a unilateral ceasefire and the whole thing ended. But here was a man who was prepared to do his duty to the end. And I think that is where leadership really comes from. And it was that leadership over the years which finally brought him to head the Punjab police at a very difficult time. It was a time most of you don't remember, but all your police stations shut at sunset. I remember once I was coming from Batala, nobody used to be on the road. And really from Batala via Amritsar to Chandigarh, I didn't see one person on the road. We stopped, a colleague of mine was with me, who wanted to talk to the Deputy Commissioner. And we stopped at the Deputy Commissioner's house, and the Deputy Commissioner's sentry wouldn't open the gate. So eventually the Deputy Commissioner was told that somebody was at the door. So they handed over at the gate the telephone. In those days you had the line telephone, and just handed over, and the sentry said, "Yes, so you got to." And that the Deputy Commissioner was spoken to, and he said, "Sorry sir," and he knew that officer, the person very well. And he said, "I'm sorry sir, but after sunset we don't open the gate." Now that was the fear that existed. And that time, the Punjab police was, as all police forces used to be, trained for different purposes. They were there for maintaining law and order, directing traffic, and those sort of things. Nobody actually had really faced terrorism of the war time. And that was when the situation developed as it did. Government of India posted Mr. Gill here, and he had a difficult task of putting this force back on its feet, rearming it, retraining it. But it was that leadership that did it. You remember those days. I think many friends are here in the front row, and I have my colleague here, Puran Dogra, who he and I were both, he was Director General of yours later on. But we were together at the IMA, we were cadets together. So it was at that time that he emerged. He started that night dominance where there was fear to go in. He led the force through the villages. You remember the cordon and search operations. You remember it was done by the Punjab police eventually. And the search was also done by the Punjab police. And it was the army which held the outer cordon to get this. And eventually, terrorists made some mistakes, which also helped us. They used to go into homes. They used to get the women there to prepare food for them, lay down their beds, and then they would rape their daughters. This was one thing which was spread through Punjab like wildfire and started turning the people against them. And then they did another thing. Whenever any wife or the person himself went shopping in town, the police officer, the NGO, whoever he was shot or she was shot. So that gave more courage to the Punjab police. And knowing the psyche of the Punjabi, Mr. Gill worked on that and eventually brought the force to a point where this terrorism was beaten back. And we lost a lot of people. Over 1,700 Punjab officers, Punjab police officers and men were killed. Over 30,000 Punjabis died during the operations, during terrorist operations, or caught in the crossfire, or whatever it was. But 30,000 did die. But Punjab got peace again, so never again. This duty, which we will be told how this global terrorism is being met, and I'm sure Dr. Rand has something to say, Dr. Chalk, on something to say about us, because this is what the Rand Corporation does do. And I'm sure, and tell us something about what he believes, what is going to happen here. But we have to be faced. We have to face up to these things. We have to remember this is going on. All of you know it. That is going on today. And we have to be prepared for it. We were a hostile neighbor, and they continue their operations as we speak. And we have to be prepared for this. And this force is now prepared for it. You have been through the baptism of fire. And that baptism of fire is what puts a backbone into a person. And has put the backbone into this force. And you must remember that you have to stand up for your country and for your state. And we have to never allow the state to ever be enmeshed or engulfed in that crisis that once spread over this place and made Punjab for 20 years a miserable place to live in. We've all been through it. As the DGP was just saying, 27,000 people, 27 candidates were killed in that election. I was also in that election. And at 2 points there were ambushes laid for me to just, by God's grace, that we changed our direction. I remember there was this very strict order. Each one of us was given one SP in charge. And my SP, it was the last time we were told that before sunset, the elections the campaigning had to stop. And this SP of mine, it was the last of the day. I think we had done about 18 or 19 visits to places. And it was the last moment in the Kala constituency where it was getting dark. And it was just turning right into a village from the main road, going to the village and coming out again and joining the main road again. And he stood in front of the car and he said, "You can't go." I said, "What difference does it make?" He said, "No, sir, you can't go. It's sun is setting, you have to go back." So I obviously was upset, but I said, now I have to come back all the way next day to this village. And next morning, the Panchayat came and told me, lucky you didn't come. Because at that final turning point, there was an ambush made. The second one was in Hoshiarpur. I went to support one of my candidates, Bhagwan Sarhan. And as we had lunch together, and then I was going right to a village. And he said, "Can I just go left? I have to meet somebody and I'll catch up with you." I said, "Fine." So I went out of his right gate, and at the left gate he was shot dead. And that was the way we were supposed to go. So these things kept happening. To our ground, you had a man leading a force who made sure that there was, I wouldn't call it a bullet for bullet, but certainly a reaction to anything that happened, and a positive reaction to bring peace. So we are today remembering Mr. Gill, who's a household word, was, and he should be remembered all the time. One never forgets brave people. Good commanders are always remembered. Today you remember people from the First World War, Second World War. You remember Montgomery. You remember Field Marshal Slim. You remember Field Marshal Rommel. All of them who made a name for themselves in different parts of the world and many of them opponents. But they led their troops. And I think Mr. Gill led his troops. And we brought peace. Many of you served under him. I didn't. I consider it my, what should I say? It would have been an honor to have served under him. A leader like that, very seldom do you get leadership of that quality. And I knew him very well. I was very fond of him, and I think he was fond of me. And I today recollect my associations with him. And let him for you be that beacon that guides you in your lead as you go up in service. And one day you too will, if you emulate him, you will be great officers and great NGOs of this very proud Punjab Police. I thank you all for calling me this morning, and I thank Dr. Peter Chalk, who has come all the way to give us his experience, and we look forward to it. I'm sure you all look forward to it, and so do I look forward to listening to him. Thank you all very much.